One. Alrighty. And so so we were talking about the Hulk and Ghost Rider as a type of thing as we were going into part 2 of the show. So I'm going to shut up and let Brother KBrew do his thing as he was talking about.
Well, I think I was using them as an analogy to show that, you know, you can pick a type of play, the type of character, let's say the type of hero that you want to be. You can go from something like the Hulk, just being a, well, Dungeons & Dragons call it barbarian, get stronger with innate rage and, you know, harder to damage them, to being any type of warrior that you can think of, to being a sneaky thief, or you can be a sorcerer, a wizard, you know, like a la Doctor Strange or Zatanna on the DC type of thing.
Right.
Or like Gandalf, right, from Lord of the Rings. And, you know, each of those archetypes have different things that they can do. And, you know, the flip side is things that they don't do very well. And so that's why it's a great team game, because you try to pick a balanced team so that, you know, somebody on a team can handle certain, you know, situations in the game. You know, I think I described earlier, you know, a little snippet of combat, but the game is not all combat. You know, the game is really a combination of 3 or 4 types of playing. Combat is one, but there's also core role playing, meaning, you know, just dialogue, improvised dialogue between, you know, so, you know, the situation could be, the setup could be, we're trying to get into a village that's surrounded, you know, or a castle. And, you know, we're trying to get into the castle, and it's daytime, the drawbridge is down. You know, we can handle it any number of ways, right? We could go combat. We could say, we're just going to run up the drawbridge, 2 guards sitting there, we're just going to shoot at them, hack at them, and try to force our way in, right? You know, that may not be the best way. We may say, well, let's just try to talk our way in, right? And so then the game takes on this role-playing aspect of who's doing the talking. Well, I look at my character sheet, and I have a stat called charisma. And charisma determines how charismatic I am,
Right.
And so, to use the word, the definition of the word, but what it does is, let's say my character has a good high charisma score, and what that means in the game is, when I roll a dice, my score says I can add, you know, any, you know, from, if my charisma is higher than average, depending on my score, I can add a +1. If it's higher, if my score is, let's say, a 14 in charisma, that means I add a +1 to any dice roll that involves charisma skills. If it's, say, a 16, then maybe I add a +2. So that means, I mean, I still have to deal with fate by rolling the dice, but I get some modifiers to where I get a larger range to be successful. And so that could play out by my character being charismatic. I say, well, I'm going to walk up to the guard, and my character, and then, you know, depending on how you want, right? Your play style could just be, I'm describing talking to the guard, or I could actually role play talking to the guard. I could put it in my character's voice. I could say my character has an accent, right? So my character, aristocratic, and he walks up to the guard and says, I demand interest for myself and my entourage. And the dungeon master will say, well, that's a persuasion. You're trying to persuade the guard. So roll a persuasion skill check. And I look at my character sheet and say, okay, I get +3 on persuasion skills. So I roll the dice. And now the dungeon master knows that this guard is low level, and maybe KBrew his character needs to roll, get a score of a 10 or higher. And so I rolled a dice and my persuasion, my charisma skill is high. So let's say I get a +2. So whatever I roll, then I add 2 points to that. If that 2 points plus what I roll equals 10, I'm successful, right? So I roll it. Let's say I roll a 6 on the dice. Out of 1 to 20, what comes up is a 6. I add 2, and that's 8. And then I
10.
And so the dungeon master says, "What do you say to the guard?" I say, "I let my entourage in." The dungeon master says, "Roll a persuasion check." I got an 8. The dungeon master looks down and says, The guard looks at you and says, "You don't look like you're from around here. I need you to go file entry papers with the local constable. Go stand in that line over there."
Right.
And so that's us improvising a conversation. He doesn't have written down. There's no script that wrote that down, because there was no guarantee that I would have said a character would have talked to the guard.
Or whatever you're going to say, or how you're going to say it. Right.
We could have said, "We're just going to leave, wait till nightfall. This other character here is a rogue and has great skills with acrobatics, and is going to try to climb the wall at night." That's how we're going to get in. So the dungeon master has to improvise how they're going to react. We have to improvise how we react. So I failed in my persuasion check. So now my group, we've got to deal with that. Like, we can't just now get in to the castle.
Now, without a long wait in that scenario.
Right. So there was combat, there was that role playing, there's exploration, right? Where, that's another facet of the game where you can describe, you're going through, like in this image behind me, you're going through a dank forest, and it's going to take you 3 days to get to where you're going.
Right.
Are you going to try to go through fast? Are you going to take your time? Are you, describe what you guys are going to do? Who's in the front? Because in the dungeon master says, he may have, to make this game interesting and not boring, walking through a forest, he says, well, you guys walk for 3 hours and all of a sudden you got attacked by 6 wolves.
Right.
He's like, what are you going to do? All right. Do you run? Do you climb a tree? Right. Or do you fight them? So, those are the different ways the game is played. You have combat, you have conversations called role playing.
And it's team building, it's conversation skills that you're building, and it's creativity and innovation skills that you're building as well, to think your way through whatever is being presented in the moment. Yeah.
It is problem solving a lot, because you have a set of constraints, right? As I've mentioned, your character can do certain things, can't do certain things.
Just like in life.
Yep, there might be some.
Your brother was smarter than I was in math, so I'm an engineer like y'all. Not an engineer like y'all.
So right. So this was like in the D&D game, you're like, okay, I think I'm gonna let that person roll. Now, hey, why don't you do the task? Because I think your skills are a little better in that than mine are. Right. And sometimes, like, they might roll and they roll really low. And you're like,
right,
man, you got +4. I rolled a 1.
Exactly. Hey, man, I equate that to watching a basketball game. Everybody got skills on that team, and everybody's skills ain't equal either, man. So it's just like, give so the ball all the time, but that ain't gonna work.
That's God doing the dice rolls. He's like, am I gonna let this go in or not go in?
Yeah, exactly. I tried to steal the ball. No.
Exactly.
Got you. Okay. So one more question for you, man, is I know that I've heard that there's celebrities involved in it. And if you're familiar with any, let me know. And also try to dispel the rumors about, this being, this is a game where people of color don't participate, but, what do you know about that aspect where, we're trying to grow the game, grow persons' experiences, so that way our communities are improved, not just people of color's community, but also how we relate in this country, because we got to get along better in this country. So how can we use that?
So, I mean, when it comes to celebrities, there are, people that I guess I was a little surprised to see would be into it. But then when in a second thought, then I wasn't as surprised. It kind of makes sense. But, let's see, Vin Diesel, was Joe Manganiello.
Yeah. Joe Manchin, yeah.
So Joe Manganiello is a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan.
I noticed that on Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory, like you've seen in shows like Big Bang Theory and Stranger Things, where they've you know had the characters in character playing Dungeons and Dragons games. But turns out a lot of professional wrestlers are big Dungeons and Dragons fans, and so I'm thinking like these guys are muscular and big, Dungeons and Dragons fans. But then what I found out, after I thought about it, I was like, first of all, they are actors
and role playing, folks.
And role players in their professional lives.
Yes.
This is not a big stretch, right, for them.
Not at all. No, that's putting on pants.
Right. So then less famous, but there's a trend right now in Dungeons and Dragons called live play, where people go onto Twitch or YouTube. Twitch is where you can see it live, where there's groups of people that actually just play Dungeons and Dragons for the entertainment of not just themselves, but the general public.
Right.
And the largest, the most successful one of that is a group called Critical Role. And that's role is an ROLE. It's a play on words, because there's a term Critical Role, ROLL, in Dungeons and Dragons. It means if you roll a 20 on a 20-sided dice, that's the highest
keep
number.
Talking. I'm listening. I got to get something while you talking about Critical Role. I got to pull something up. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Okay, no problem. And so Critical Role was a group of voice actors. Again, people who are not too that far removed, who play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's fun to watch. And so they have gained so much success that they started a Kickstarter to produce an animated video, or a little animation. And I believe they may have started out with a goal of something like $250,000, and they ended up raising $11 million or so.
Right.
So for those that have Amazon Prime, the fruits of their Kickstarter campaign is called The Legend of Vox Machina.
Yep.
And it's like the first season of a series of animated adult series on Amazon Prime. So that's a great example. If people want to just get a little, without actively participating in Dungeons and Dragons, an idea of what the game is about. That's it. So live play thing. There's you asked me about people of color.
Yes.
And there's some names that I want to kind of advertise. There's Tanya DePass. She goes online by Cipher of Tyr. Abria Iyengar is a dungeon master and a player on several live stream. He did some by Critical Role. She was a dungeon master on the Exandria Unlimited kind of limited series of games or D&D campaigns. Gentleman B. Dave Walters. Oh yeah, there's a comic. Yep, they have comic series out and some graphic novels as well. And so this again started from a group of friends saying, hey, let's it actually started with a group of friends having a Dungeons and Dragons game, introducing their mutual friends to it for like a birthday party. And then it grew and grew, and now it's a multi-million-dollar company for these people. So with comic books and animated cartoon series. So they found some success. B. Dave Walters is a brother. He's a Morehouse graduate, actually.
Oh wow.
What's
his name again, please?
B uses his first initial, Dave Walters. So he dungeon masters a live stream game called a Black Dice Society, along with several others. He and I know Tanya DePass, which is another name I mentioned. She's a sister from, I think she lives in the Chicago area. They built their own role-playing game system called Into the Motherlands, which is kind of a sci-fi afro-futurism
Yeah.
genre. So there's a good number of people of color. There's, let's see, Robbie Damon, Amy Carrero, Luis Carazo are some players in some of these live stream events. Anjali Bamani, who's of Indian, East India heritage, is a big player. And so it's men, women, all ethnicities play the game, because you can bring any aspect of your culture. You're creating your own character. If you want your character to be a West African shaman, you can do that within the rules of the game.
Yep.
If you want to make a Egyptian themed, fantasy, they already have some publishing, adventures already in that area. You can make it up, right? My team that I play with, right? One of the guys, his character is more of a African shaman style. Right. The way he plays it, he talks with a Nigerian accent. Another one of our players is a Mexican heritage, and his character, it's funny, you can play with not just different types. I've talked about wizards, but you can have what we call our lineages or races or lineages.
Absolutely, yes.
So he plays what's called a dragonborn, which you think of it as kind of a humanoid dragon, right? If a dragon had, 2 arms, 2 legs, right? Just more of a dragon head and scales. He plays a dragonborn, but he plays it as if it's like an Aztec warrior.
Yeah.
Right. And he has this great club, which is, he's described it as, those big wooden, things that the Aztec had that had obsidian stones in them, because they didn't really have steel making. So it was like wood, right, with sharp stones, embedded in it and stuff like that. And that's how he describes his character, swinging this club and does the damage. And it's a blue scale skin warrior. So
right,
you can make your character to be whatever kind of style, whatever kind of genre, what kind of ethnicity, heritage, real or as fantastic as you want it to be.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the mind is the limit. How about that?
Exactly. And then there's some rules, right? Like, your character's not going to be perfect score in everything.
But you can't. Your character, you can try to do. Yeah, you can build your character to be as whatever you can be, but you still got the borders of the game itself. So
yep.
You can be Billy Bad Booty as you want, but
and actually, that's a funny. Once we were playing with the character, it wasn't me, but another guy played a character where it was. He played into his low stat scores, and where he thought he was harder core than what he was, and so it was funny. So he played, but he didn't play it for long. Like, he still want to have fun in the game. You want to be able to be successful at things,
right?
But you're right. You have. We separated 2 things. We call it flavor and mechanics. Mechanics are the rules say, well, you have to roll this die for this, that. The flavor is how you describe that happen. Yeah. And we always joke, flavor's free, right? So, I can say it could be as boring as I'm going to hit with my rope dart. My character's kind of like a Shaolin monk sort of thing with
with the rope
dart,
yeah.
Right? I say I hit with my rope dart, roll a d20. Okay, I get a 18, then you hit. Okay, I roll, I do 8 points of damage. Right? It can be boring. That's kind of boring, right? Mechanically, it worked, right? My thing is, how do you describe it? Well, my character jumps up, he's swinging around on 1 foot. He's spinning his rope dart around his head, and it starts glowing. And strike out at his character. I hit him in the shoulder. Punctures his shoulder. I pull it back.
Right.
And everybody's like, "Hey, that was a bad move." Did the same 8. I did the 8 points of damage, but it was more entertaining to me and the other fellow players, just the way I
Hey,
played.
yeah, you know what? So here's where I'm going to trip you out, because in fact, here's where the Callahan magic goes a little bit far. And I got to play with these lights because I look like I'm a little lost in the light because it's sunny back behind me. But Callahan's mindset is like your energy that you're just describing, putting into that role play, like the flavor. Who's to say that, like, when you have that much energy going as you're describing what you're doing, and you hit those dice to do the effect of what you did, who's to say that that energy that you got in your hand that you put through doesn't come through on that dice roll? Just saying. I mean, are things like, we have more effect over this planet and the things that we do than we actually think. I'm not saying that it's going to come out to your best benefit every doggone time, obviously not, but it doesn't mean that that energy is not transferred, because much like people who do yoga, they do energy transfers in hands where you can feel it. So say it doesn't transfer to the dice. Just saying.
Hey, man, we have a phrase: the dice gods give it and the dice gods take it away. So sometimes it's like that. But really, the energy transfer actually is amongst us playing together.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're all professionals, at least with my group, middle-aged, and most of us are married, children with kids, and it's just a little break where we get to have some crazy energy, telling crazy stories. Whereas, similar energy where, I grew up, I had a lot of, some uncles who used to always tell tall tales. I mean, it's just funny to sit there and listen, like, telling the truth. Like, I don't know, right? This that kind of energy, right? Where you're just, man, we're making up some crazy stuff and it's improvising, and you'll say something, and our dungeon master, guy named G, man, he is awesome. Like, he'll respond, and you're like, oh man, that cat is fast on his feet. Like, he's responding in character.
Right.
And the dungeon master also has I was talking about their job as a narrator. Like, I have one character to play, right? My colleagues, my fellow warriors, right? Each of us have only one character that we're responsible for. The dungeon master plays everybody else. So I described that there was the guard. He's got to play the guard. He's got to kind of think about, well, what would the guards say?
Yeah.
Right. He's got to think about the orc that we fought. The orc is an intelligent, monster.
Yeah. So it's not a wall.
Right. What's the orc's motivation? Will the orc by itself just fight till it gets killed, or will the orc may plead for his life, or may run away, or may say, hey, why are you guys attacking me? I didn't do anything to you. And we're like, it's a game. Like, we were thinking, like, we need to kill.
I didn't expect that.
To level up. Didn't expect it. I mean, we got hit with some stuff, some situation in the game where, Dungeon Master pulls some stuff, and the guy's like, it makes you think about that game. Like, the next day, you're like, oh man. Like, there was a game I played with my character. It's something, and we found some, like, I don't know, let's say goblins. They were asleep, and the character's like, we didn't sleep. We just stab everything to death. Right? And then my character was the character where he's played kind of like a good guy, and I was just like, my character actually would probably have a problem with that. Right? And like, I literally felt guilt, like real guilt.
Yeah, I got you.
It's like the whole week that thing was on my mind. And when we played the next session, I told the guys, like, hey man, I gotta say, my character Dreads would probably not be cool with what went down. We just slaughtered these sleeping, like, they weren't attacking us. And everybody thought about it for a second, was like, yeah, it probably wasn't cool. Right? Like, because you can play the game, but then you got to think about, like, what would my character really do or really not do? And you could be evil, you could be good and do bad things, you could be, so it was just like, we got, everybody's like, oh man, yeah, you're right, man. Maybe we, you know, but yeah, that is something. So you play that, and you got to play like, what does my character really do? And that's kind of some of the fun stuff. Is like, what does KBrew know versus what does the character know in the game?
Right.
Like KBrew loves Dungeons and Dragons. KBrew reads books. He knows what monster stats are. He knows that, you know, a troll may be damaged by a certain type of attack. Does my character know that? It's the first time my character's ever met a troll, so I have to say, I could do this particular attack. I could do that particular attack. But I know from reading a book about these various monsters, like, you know, kind of encyclopedia of monsters called a monster manual, that this particular thing is more vulnerable to attack A.
Right.
But does my character know that? My character wouldn't know that. He's never encountered this monster before.
You have, exactly.
So I might just go attack with the other one, and the dungeon master says, you didn't do any damage. Right? And it's like, oh. Now, I know some of my other players who don't study it like I do, they don't know that. So I'm waiting for the fun of them finding out on their own. You know, oh, I hit it with this thing. Oh, I did double the damage.
Right,
Look,
right.
you know, KBrew hit it with this thing and did no damage. Maybe we should all use this.
Right.
And so that's a part
Depends
of it.
on how and that's often, you know, so, you know, man, that's trippy, because that leads me into one of the other questions. I think I was going to say, you know, with life skills gained from this, playing this game, or how does it identify or mirror real life? So you're actually you're answering that question that I was going to pose to you about how does it mirror or identify with real life, because your replies, even in those scenarios that you just gave, and being studied on the vulnerabilities of a monster that you're going to fight. However, sometimes it's even like when you're raising your kids, like your kid may come to you with a question about something, and it's like, well, I know the answer and I can give the answer, but sometimes I think it's best for you to find the answer for yourself. It's
Right.
You get it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you play the role like in the game, like, okay, I already know the weakness of this monster. I can go for it right now, or just pull back. It's identifying with life. Am I correct?
You are. You're absolutely correct. I mean, it's some of the stuff we touched on, right? Being able to improvise, right? Being able to, you know, problem solve, being able to, you know, have teamwork. You know, those are some things we've already touched on.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to those one or two things that we hadn't really touched on yet. You know, I mentioned, you know, there's some virtual tools, right? Like that Roll20 that help you, you know, play virtually. Well, you know, I've had to do a little bit of, you know, programming, right? And so there are ways you can kind of automate things that you're doing to make them a little bit more efficient, but it requires a little bit of lightweight programming, right? So computer skills, right? If you want to, there's another platform, it's called Tailspire, that, you know, I have downloaded. I haven't really spent a lot of time digging into yet, but Tailspire is kind of like almost like an adult version of Minecraft.
Okay.
For these virtual role-playing games where you can actually build, you know, a town, build an environment, build a forest, build a dungeon in 3 dimensions, right? 3D. You can light it up. You can choose whether it's flickering torches or a magical orb. And so it's kind of like Minecraft in that, right? Or Fortnite, where you're building your environment.
Right.
They have applications where you can build miniatures, right? Well, you know, you can go in and use, you know, tools that are available, open source tools available to take a miniature, a virtual 3D model and animate it and drop it into this 3D. So you can learn some computer skills. You can learn some like graphic, you know, visual effects design skills, storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can,
yes.
you can
It goes
buy
on for skills.
features or you can write your own, right? And so those are some of the skills, right, that I've learned and fine-tuned. Great for young people, right, to play the game, because again, it even if a person's kind of shy or an introvert, you know, you have to come out a little bit, right? You play games. Or they can explore that. They can say, I'm an introvert, but my character is an extrovert.
And or exploit even being an introvert and seeing how that goes in the game and how it may pull that out of you or get, you know, when to be it and when not to be it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a way for people to explore different aspects of, you know, how they want to live and behave.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's a lot of life skills there, and it's ways that, you know, again, good things that, you know, won't hurt you in your professional life, right? Being able to improvise, being able to take what somebody else says and not make it a or but an and conversation, like, oh,
exactly.
Let me build on what you just said. Being able to roll with the punches, right?
I call it add more spices to the pot.
There you go. Yep. So you do that, right, in the game. Being able to, you know, you're not going to, the game is a way that, like any other game, right? It doesn't always go your way. I have, you know, like I say, the dice rolls is a way that fate intervenes in your plan.
That's the way life is.
Right.
Life don't like always go. Yes, sir.
And somebody asked once, you know, how do you win in D&D, right? Like a football game, there's a time limit. At the end of the time limit is either you win, you lost, or you tie, right? Dungeons and Dragons is not like that. It is a story. You win. The way to win in Dungeons and Dragons is by having a great time with the people that you play with. The game is like a soap opera, and it doesn't necessarily have to end.
Soap operas don't.
Soap operas don't. There's always another adventure. You can, at some point, you can either decide, I don't want to play with this character anymore. I want to retire character. I want to start over with another character, right? Or your character might die,
right?
Right. I had character, oh man, where our entire party, we just went up against a really big bad monster. We probably should have taken action to run. Instead, we decided to fight, and
didn't work out so well.
Didn't work out for us. But did we have a great time? Was it epic? Was it a tragic ending for some heroic characters? Yeah, it was.
Hey, that's the way it goes. Sometimes, you know, man, just like in life. I mean, we talk even with military things. There have been, just like we talked about the movie Glory with the 55th Negro Regiment, that, you know, they went and attacked. I can't remember if it was Fort Sumter or not, but it didn't work out so well. However, it set the format for the next group to go in there and to win. So it's just how life goes. But hey, I've got you for 5.5 more minutes, as we're running out of time. And I wanted to also show something else. I don't know if you're familiar with this, KBrew. Are you familiar with this series here from Image Comics, Die?
Actually, no. And I've collected Image Comics, but it was a good number of years ago, but not Die.
No, this is new. This was in the last 4 years. So this is based upon Dungeons and Dragons, of course, by the Die.
Okay.
This is, and the artist, the writer is Kieran Gillian. I'll put it closer.
Okay.
And the artist is Stephanie Hans, Stephanie Hans smashes these covers. There's not one bad cover in the lot.
Yeah, they look nice.
So I'm just giving people more reading material that Kieran Gillian is a phenomenal writer. And again, these covers, not one loser. And that's just the first 5 issues. There are more than that.
Nice.
Great read. And I recommend that. And so I also wanted to, I'm gonna put them on pause because I'm just trying to we talked about Stranger Things. We talked about Vox Machina. We talked about Die, the comic book. We mentioned Big Bang Theory, but one of my favorite episodes of Big Bang Theory was season 6, episode 23, named the Dungeons and Dragons episode, with Wolowitz being the dungeon master. One of the funniest, but one of the best shows they ever did with Dungeons and Dragons. And there's another one he talked about, and I think it's in the last season of Big Bang Theory, when Leonard gets invited to play Dungeons and Dragons with Will Crusher. And we talked about Maginelli, Joe Maginelli, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there. It was a ton of people in the room playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm sure they do it in real life, and there's probably a real life crew that played Dungeons.
Yeah, Deborah Ann Woll, who's she was in the Marvel Daredevil
Yes.
TV series. She's a big Dungeons and Dragons player and dungeon master and player, very creative. We talked about a lot of shows, but we did talk about, we have to mention the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the.
Yeah, thank you. I've had it to mention.
We got to mention that one. And then there was also remember the series Community.
Yes.
They actually did 1 or 2 episodes where they were playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, you know, it's big pop culture. It's big phenomenon. And all of those things are nice. It's nice to watch that, but it's past. You know, get out there, find a group, right? You can go to wizardsofthecoast.com, which is the publisher for Dungeons and Dragons. You can go to your local comic store, hobby store, and you can find a group to try it out, or just grab 2 or 3 of your friends. There's some Dungeons and Dragons rules that's just a simple rules that you can get on a PDF. Download it and buy you know, from a local hobby store, some dice, or from Amazon.com, and just start playing. You cannot play it wrong as long as you're having fun while playing.
Yes, sir.
And of course, then you can watch anything. You know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos and influencers like yourself, 2SkeGEEKS. You know, a lot of people who cover Dungeons and Dragons and things of that nature. And you know, I enjoy kind of passing the time watching that, and you know, watching those shows where other people are playing D&D. But it's nothing that beats, you know, you playing it for yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to get involved one of these days, man. And
yeah, man, I'll have a session for you.
Yeah,
hope you guys through it.
All right, man. We got about a minute left, so I'm going to make this time to say thank you so much, brother, for joining us. I'm looking forward to putting this out to the world for everybody to see, because I know I've had people who are fans of this show who have come to me and say, "You're going to do a Dungeons and Dragons show, man? I can't wait." So I can't wait to supply this to the world, and look forward to the good that it's going to do for our communities, for our children, and also adults, and we can do to improve our parent raising skills and our own personal skills on the world. And again, my whole thing is trying to make this country better and finding ways to get us together as a community and make us sync better. So
thank you for that. We need that.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll call.
Thank you, brother.
Good talk.
Peace.